Officer Derek Sullivan had been with the Portland Police Department for 6 years when he walked into a situation that would destroy his career and cost the city $33.7 million. He was 29 years old, young enough to claim inexperience, but old enough to know that arresting someone in full firefighter gear during an active rescue might be the worst decision of his life. One Friday afternoon on Belmont Street in southeast Portland, he arrived at a house fire and saw a black man in turnout gear pulling a family through smoke. Instead of helping, instead of asking questions, instead of processing what his own eyes were showing him, Sullivan decided that black man couldn't possibly be a firefighter captain. What Sullivan did next, handcuffing a decorated fire officer during an active rescue, ignoring visible credentials, and forcing other firefighters to abandon their work to verify his identity, would become proof that racial assumptions override common sense, even when lives hang in the balance. That arrest would end Sullivan's career, trigger a Department of Justice investigation, and force Portland to pay the largest wrongful arrest settlement in Oregon history. A black man in his early 40s, Captain Marcus Chen, stood in full firefighting gear, yellow turnout coat with reflective stripes, black helmet with Captain 47 in white letters, radio clipped to his shoulder strap, carrying a 7-year-old girl through smoke pouring from a residential doorway. His face shield was up, his badge clearly visible on his chest. Portland Fire and Rescue, Captain, badge 4729. No crime, no impersonation, no violation, just a 19-year veteran doing exactly what his city paid him to do. But Officer Sullivan saw him through assumptions so rigid that turnout gear, a badge, and active life-saving work couldn't penetrate the simple calculus in his mind. Black man at fire scene equals suspicious person. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The house sat on Belmont Street, a tree-lined residential block in southeast Portland, where modest single-family homes from the 1920s had been renovated by young families and retirees. Number 4847 was a 2-story craftsman with a wide front porch, white siding, and blue trim. The Ramirez family had lived there for 8 years. 3 generations. Grandmother Maria, 68, her daughter Sophia, 42, and Sophia's 2 children, Emma, 7, and Lucas, 4. It was 2:47 p.m. on a Friday in October. The autumn sun filtered through maple trees, turning gold and orange. The temperature hovered at 62 degrees. Perfect weather for open windows, which Sophia had done that morning before leaving for her shift as a dental hygienist at the clinic on Hawthorne Boulevard. Maria was watching the kids while Sophia worked. She'd been in the kitchen making lunch when Emma ran downstairs screaming that smoke was coming from Lucas's bedroom. The smoke had come from faulty wiring in the second-floor wall, invisible inside the drywall until it ignited insulation and wooden studs. By the time Maria realized what was happening, the upstairs hallway was filling with thick black smoke. She grabbed Emma and tried to reach Lucas's room, but the smoke drove her back. She got Emma outside and called 911 at 2:39 p.m., then tried 3 more times to reach Lucas. Each attempt ended the same way. Smoke too thick, heat too intense, her 68-year-old lungs unable to breathe. Station 47 was 4 blocks away. Captain Marcus Chen heard the dispatch at 2:40 p.m. Structure fire, possible entrapment, child inside. His crew was on scene at 2:43 p.m., 4 minutes from dispatch to arrival. Chen saw smoke pouring from second-floor windows, heard Maria screaming that her grandson was upstairs, saw flames beginning to lick through the roof shingles. No time for staging equipment. No time for full crew assembly. Chen grabbed his SCBA mask, told his engineer to get water on the fire, and went in through the front door. Marcus Chen had been with Portland Fire and Rescue for 19 years. 19 years responding to fires, medical emergencies, car accidents, and every crisis that required someone trained to run toward danger while everyone else ran away. He joined at 24, right after completing his bachelor's degree in emergency management at Portland State University. His father had been a firefighter in Oakland, his grandfather a firefighter in San Francisco. The work was in his blood. His first 5 years were at Station 12 in North Portland, learning the fundamentals of firefighting from veterans who'd been on the job since the 1980s. He studied building construction, ventilation techniques, fire behavior, hazardous materials response. He became certified in advanced life support, technical rescue, and hazmat operations. He worked 24-hour shifts, sleeping in the station, eating communal meals, training constantly. By year 6, he'd been promoted to engineer, running the pump panel, managing water flow, ensuring his crew had the pressure they needed to fight fires effectively. At year 9, he was promoted to lieutenant at Station 31 in southeast Portland. He supervised a crew of 4 firefighters, made tactical decisions on scene, coordinated with incident commanders. He completed his master's degree in public administration, focusing on emergency services management. His thesis analyzed response time optimization in urban fire departments. He taught classes at the Oregon Fire Service Training Academy, mentoring new recruits, sharing the lessons he'd learned from thousands of calls. At year 14, Marcus Chen was promoted to captain and transferred to Station 47, a busy house in southeast Portland that averaged 12 calls per 24-hour shift. As captain, he commanded the engine company, made life-or-death decisions under pressure, managed personnel, and served as incident commander on smaller fires. He'd received commendations for valor 3 times, once for pulling a man from a burning car seconds before it exploded, once for rescuing 2 children from a house fire, in conditions his own department later described as unsurvivable, and once for coordinating a multi-alarm fire at a warehouse that saved 6 neighboring buildings. His personnel file was immaculate. His performance evaluations consistently rated him outstanding in leadership, technical skills, and decision-making. His crew trusted him. His chief trusted him. The community trusted him. At 43 years old, Captain Marcus Chen was exactly what Portland Fire and Rescue wanted. Experienced, dedicated, and willing to risk his life for strangers without hesitation. That Friday afternoon, Chen was scheduled for his regular 24-hour shift at Station 47. He'd arrived at 8 a.m., conducted morning equipment checks, reviewed staffing assignments, and participated in training drills on vehicle extrication. By 2:30 p.m., his crew had already responded to 4 calls: a medical emergency, a car accident, a false alarm, and a hazmat spill. When the structure fire call came in at 2:40 p.m., Chen and his crew were ready. They'd trained for this exact scenario hundreds of times. Chen went through the front door of 4847 Belmont Street with his SCBA mask on, his thermal imaging camera in hand, and his radio transmitting his position to command. He found Lucas Ramirez unconscious in his bedroom, lying on the floor where smoke rises last. Chen scooped him up, covered his face, and carried him through smoke so thick he couldn't see his own hands. He found Emma on the first floor, separated from her grandmother, disoriented and crying. He grabbed her too, cradling Lucas in one arm and guiding Emma with the other. He pushed through the front door, handed Lucas to a paramedic, and turned back to verify the house was clear. That's when Officer Derek Sullivan arrived. Derek Sullivan had been with the Portland Police Department for 6 years. In those 6 years, he'd compiled a record that should have triggered intensive supervision long before that Friday afternoon. 9 complaints. 9 separate incidents where civilians accused Sullivan of using excessive force, making racially biased stops, or escalating situations unnecessarily. 3 of those complaints had been sustained, resulting in written reprimands and mandatory de-escalation training. The other 6 had been closed as unsubstantiated, despite witness statements, despite body camera footage that raised questions, despite patterns so obvious that even his own sergeants noted them in annual evaluations. Sullivan had a specific type of incident that kept appearing in his complaint file: confrontations with black men in situations where he immediately assumed criminality. A black man jogging through Laurelhurst Park was stopped and questioned about what he was doing in a wealthy neighborhood. Sullivan's report claimed the man fit the description of a suspect, but no suspect description existed. A black teenager skateboarding on Northeast Alberta Street was detained for 30 minutes, while Sullivan searched his backpack without consent, finding nothing but school books and snacks. The teenager's father filed a complaint. Sullivan's sergeant noted in the investigation file that the stop appeared to lack reasonable suspicion. A black businessman in a suit and tie was pulled over in Selwood for failing to signal a lane change. The stop lasted 45 minutes and included a vehicle search. No contraband was found. The businessman recorded the entire interaction on his phone, and the footage showed Sullivan demanding to know why he was driving such an expensive car. The complaint was sustained. Sullivan received a written reprimand and 3 days of unpaid suspension. The pattern was documented. The training had been mandated, but Sullivan remained on patrol, and his assumptions about black people remained unchanged. When Sullivan heard the dispatch for the structure fire at 4847 Belmont Street, he was 2 blocks away on routine patrol. He wasn't assigned to the call. Fire and medical units were already on scene, but Sullivan decided to respond anyway, arriving at 2:48 p.m., 5 minutes after Captain Chen's crew. What Sullivan saw when he arrived was smoke pouring from a house, fire trucks blocking the street, firefighters working hoses, and a black man in what looked like firefighter gear carrying a child. But Sullivan's mind didn't process it as a rescue in progress. His mind, trained by 6 years of assuming black men were suspects first and citizens second, saw something suspicious. That black man looked out of place. That gear looked too new. That badge looked fake. Sullivan's training on racial bias, his written reprimands, his mandated de-escalation courses, none of it mattered. He saw a black man at an emergency scene and decided to investigate. Sullivan approached Chen as Chen was handing Emma Ramirez to her mother. Chen's face shield was up. His badge was visible. Portland Fire and Rescue. Captain, badge 4729, Marcus Chen. His turnout coat had reflective stripes. His radio was actively transmitting. His crew was 20 feet away, connecting hoses. But Sullivan looked at all of that and saw a criminal impersonating a firefighter. Do you think officers should face automatic termination for arresting emergency personnel during active rescues? Drop your answer below. Step away from that house. Chen looked up, confused. He was still catching his breath from pulling 2 children through smoke. Emma was safe in her mother's arms. Lucas was being treated by paramedics. Chen's crew was preparing to enter the house again to ensure complete clearance. The voice came from his left, a police officer in a dark blue uniform, young, white, hand resting on his service weapon. I'm pulling them out. There are people inside. Sullivan moved closer, positioning himself between Chen and the house. His body language was aggressive, feet shoulder-width apart, chest forward, hands still on his weapon. I said, step away. You're interfering with emergency personnel. Chen blinked. Interfering with emergency personnel. He was emergency personnel. He glanced at his crew, his engineer, his 2 firefighters, who were watching the interaction with visible confusion. One of them, firefighter Martinez, started walking over. I am emergency personnel. Fire Captain Marcus Chen, Station 47. Chen gestured to the badge on his chest, to the turnout gear he was wearing, to the fire truck parked 30 feet away with Station 47 painted on the side. His radio squawked with traffic from the incident commander. Sure you are. Hands behind your back. This is where assumptions become accusations. This is where Sullivan's 6-year pattern of racial profiling overrode the physical evidence standing directly in front of him. Chen was wearing 60 pounds of authentic firefighting gear. His badge was Regulation Portland Fire and Rescue issue. His radio was actively connected to the department's frequency. His crew was visible, his apparatus was visible. His participation in an active rescue was visible. But Sullivan, trained by years of assuming black men were criminals, couldn't process any of it. What? I'm wearing my gear. My badge is right there on my chest. Chen pointed again to his badge, speaking slowly, trying to help Sullivan understand what he was looking at. Behind him, firefighter Martinez arrived, stepping between Chen and Sullivan. Officer, this is Captain Chen. He's our station commander. He just pulled 2 kids out of that house. Sullivan didn't look at Martinez. His eyes stayed locked on Chen, and his hand remained on his weapon. Fake badges are easy to buy. You're under arrest for impersonating a firefighter. Martinez stepped closer, raising his voice to be heard over the sound of water hitting burning structure. Officer, I'm telling you, this is Captain Marcus Chen. He's been with Portland Fire for 19 years. He commands this station. Sullivan finally looked at Martinez, his jaw tightening. Step back or you're interfering with an arrest. Martinez looked at Chen, stunned. Chen raised one hand in a calming gesture. Officer Sullivan? Chen had read Sullivan's name tag by now. I understand you're trying to verify the situation. My badge number is 4729. You can call dispatch right now and confirm my identity. But that family might still be inside, and my crew needs to finish clearing the house. Sullivan pulled his handcuffs from his belt. You're under arrest for impersonating a firefighter. Hands behind your back. Now. Chen's radio squawked again. The incident commander was asking for a status update on interior search. Chen could see smoke still pouring from the second floor. He could see his crew waiting for him to give orders. He could hear Maria Ramirez crying, asking if Lucas was breathing. And he could see Officer Derek Sullivan, hand on his service weapon, demanding that he put his hands behind his back. You're arresting me while people are dying in there? Chen's voice was calm, controlled, but the disbelief was unmistakable. Martinez was already pulling out his phone, calling the battalion chief. Another firefighter, Rodriguez, started recording on his cell phone. I'm doing my job. Sullivan moved behind Chen and grabbed his arm. Chen didn't resist. He let Sullivan pull his arms behind his back. He felt the cold metal of handcuffs click around his wrists, tight enough to hurt. The weight of his turnout coat pulled forward, now that his hands weren't free to balance it. His radio fell silent, the button on his shoulder strap no longer reachable. The scene froze. Chen, in full firefighter gear, hands cuffed behind his back. Sullivan, gripping Chen's arm, leading him away from the burning house. The entire crew from Station 47, 8 firefighters in total, standing motionless, watching their captain being arrested during an active rescue. Maria Ramirez, holding Emma, staring in shock. Neighbors recording on their phones from front yards and porches. Firefighter Martinez stepped forward again, his voice tight with controlled anger. Officer, you need to uncuff him right now. Captain Chen is a 19-year veteran. He just saved 2 children. That house isn't clear yet, and you're arresting our incident commander. Sullivan didn't respond. He walked Chen toward his patrol car, parked awkwardly at the curb, blocking one of the fire trucks. Chen stumbled slightly, the 60 pounds of gear harder to manage with his hands behind his back. He could see Lucas on a stretcher, oxygen mask on his face, paramedics working. He could see Sofia Ramirez arriving, sprinting from her car, screaming about her children. He could see his crew, paralyzed between continuing the rescue and defending their captain. The radio on Chen's shoulder squawked one more time. The battalion chief, Chief Donovan, asking for Chen's status. Firefighter Martinez grabbed his own radio. Command, this is Martinez at 4847 Belmont. We have a situation. Captain Chen has been arrested by PPB. Repeat, our captain has been placed under arrest during active operations. There was a pause on the radio, then Chief Donovan's voice, sharp and incredulous. Say again, Martinez. Captain Chen has been what? Arrested, Chief. Officer Sullivan, Portland PD, badge 3477. Arrested Captain Chen for impersonating a firefighter. Another pause, longer this time. Then, Donovan's voice, cold with fury. Hold your position. I'm en route. Nobody moves until I get there. Battalion Chief Robert Donovan arrived at 2:52 p.m., 4 minutes after Chen's arrest. He'd been 2 miles away, responding to a different call, when he heard Martinez's radio transmission. He drove code 3, lights and sirens, through residential streets, his mind racing to make sense of what he'd just heard. Captain Marcus Chen, one of his best officers, arrested at a fire scene? It was impossible. It had to be a miscommunication. But when Donovan arrived, he saw Chen in handcuffs, standing next to a police cruiser, still in full turnout gear. He saw Officer Sullivan guarding Chen like a criminal. He saw the entire Station 47 crew standing idle while smoke continued pouring from the house. And he saw cameras, dozens of cameras, held by neighbors, firefighters, and bystanders, all recording. Donovan parked his command vehicle and walked straight to Sullivan, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm Battalion Chief Robert Donovan, Portland Fire and Rescue. That man you have in handcuffs is Captain Marcus Chen. He's one of my incident commanders. He's been with this department for 19 years, and you need to uncuff him immediately." Sullivan looked at Donovan but didn't move to unlock the handcuffs. "He's under arrest for impersonating a firefighter." Donovan stared at Sullivan for a long moment, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to barely restrained fury. Impersonating a firefighter? He's wearing Portland Fire and Rescue gear. His badge is regulation issue. His crew is standing right there. What exactly about this situation says impersonation? Sullivan's jaw tightened. Fake gear is easy to obtain. I'm verifying his identity through proper channels. Donovan pulled out his department-issued tablet and held it up, showing Sullivan the screen. It displayed Chen's personnel file: photo, badge number, rank, assignment. Everything matched the man standing in handcuffs. Here's his personnel file: Captain Marcus Chen, badge 4729, assigned to Station 47 since 2018. Does that match the badge on his chest? Sullivan glanced at the tablet but didn't respond. Donovan stepped closer, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "Officer, that house might still have people inside. My captain was conducting an active rescue when you arrested him. Every second he stands here in handcuffs is a second we can't clear that structure. So I'm asking you one more time. Uncuff him." Sullivan finally reached for his keys, but before he could unlock the handcuffs, a Portland police sergeant arrived. Sergeant Laura Chen, no relation to Marcus, had been monitoring the radio traffic and heard multiple units calling for assistance at a fire scene with an officer-involved incident. She parked behind Sullivan's cruiser and walked directly to the confrontation, reading the situation instantly. "Sullivan, what's going on here? He's under arrest for impersonating a firefighter." Sergeant Chen looked at Marcus Chen. Full turnout gear, helmet, badge, radio. She looked at the fire trucks, the smoke, the crew in identical gear. She looked back at Sullivan. "You arrested a firefighter for impersonating a firefighter? I'm verifying his identity." Sergeant Chen pulled her own radio and called dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Chen. I need verification on a Portland Fire and Rescue Captain, Marcus Chen, badge 4729, assigned to Station 47. The response came back within 30 seconds. "Confirmed. Captain Marcus Chen, badge 4729, 19 years with Portland Fire and Rescue. Current assignment Station 47. On duty today, from 0800 to 0800 tomorrow." Sergeant Chen turned to Sullivan, her voice sharp. "Uncuff him right now. That's an order." Sullivan unlocked the handcuffs. Chen pulled his arms forward, rubbing his wrists where red marks were already visible. Donovan stepped next to him. "Captain, you okay?" Chen nodded, but his eyes were on the house. Smoke was still visible from second-floor windows. "Chief, we need to finish clearing that structure." Donovan nodded. Chen turned to his crew, his voice steady despite everything that had just happened. "Martinez, Rodriguez, you're with me. Full search, second floor. Let's clear it." The crew moved immediately, grateful to return to the work they knew how to do. Chen put his SCBA mask back on and followed his firefighters through the front door, disappearing into smoke. Sergeant Chen turned to Sullivan, her expression grim. "Badge and radio. You're done for the day. Chief Freeman wants you in his office first thing tomorrow." Sullivan handed over his badge and police radio without argument. For the first time, he seemed to understand what he'd done. Sergeant Chen walked him to his patrol car, watched him get in, and sent him back to the precinct. Then she turned to Donovan. "Chief, I'm filing a formal apology on behalf of Portland PD. This should never have happened." Donovan nodded but didn't respond. He was watching Chen and his crew finish the rescue that should never have been interrupted. Should officers be required to verify emergency credentials before making arrests? Let me know in the comments. Within 3 hours, the videos had exploded across every social media platform. Multiple angles: Chen being handcuffed in full firefighter gear, Martinez confronting Sullivan, Chief Donovan showing Sullivan Chen's personnel file, Chen rubbing his wrists after being uncuffed, then immediately going back into a burning building to finish the rescue. The footage was damning, visceral, impossible to defend. The headlines wrote themselves within hours. Portland cop arrests black firefighter captain during active rescue. Fire captain handcuffed while saving children, accused of fake badge. Officer arrests 19-year fire veteran for doing his job because he's black. The outrage was immediate and intense. Portland Fire and Rescue issued a statement at 6 p.m. the same day. Today, Captain Marcus Chen, a 19-year veteran and decorated officer of Portland Fire and Rescue, was wrongfully arrested while conducting an active rescue operation. Captain Chen pulled 2 children from a burning structure and was in the process of ensuring scene safety when he was detained by Portland police. This arrest was unjustified, interfered with emergency operations, and placed lives at risk. We stand behind Captain Chen and demand accountability. Portland police issued their own statement at 7:30 p.m. Portland police is aware of an incident involving the arrest of a Portland Fire and Rescue captain. Officer Derek Sullivan has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Chief Freeman has ordered a full review of the incident and extends his personal apology to Captain Chen. But apologies don't stop viral videos. By midnight, the footage had been viewed over 10 million times. Civil rights organizations called for Sullivan's termination. The firefighters' union demanded a Department of Justice investigation. Oregon governor issued a statement condemning the arrest. Even the mayor of Portland, typically cautious about criticizing police, called the arrest unconscionable. The Ramirez family was safe. Lucas had suffered smoke inhalation, but recovered fully. Emma was uninjured. Maria and Sophia were traumatized by the fire, but grateful for Captain Chen's rescue. When reporters asked them about the arrest, Sophia's response was simple. "That man saved my children's lives, and your police officer arrested him for it. How do I explain that to my daughter?" Officer Derek Sullivan never spoke publicly about the arrest. His attorney issued a brief statement claiming Sullivan was following protocol, but the statement was drowned out by thousands of comments pointing out that protocol doesn't involve arresting firefighters at fire scenes. Civil rights attorneys contacted Captain Chen within 24 hours. The case was straightforward: wrongful arrest, violation of civil rights, racial profiling, interference with emergency operations, endangerment of public safety. The list of violations kept growing as attorneys reviewed the footage, the radio transcripts, and Sullivan's complaint history. The lawsuit was filed 6 weeks after the arrest. It named Officer Derek Sullivan, Sergeant Laura Chen for supervisory failure, the Portland Police Department for inadequate training and oversight, and the City of Portland for maintaining employment of an officer with 9 complaints. The claims were extensive: unlawful arrest without probable cause, false imprisonment during an active emergency, violation of federal civil rights, racial profiling and discrimination, interference with emergency operations, endangerment of public safety, failure to verify clearly visible credentials, failure to train and supervise officers with documented patterns of racial bias. The city's attorneys reviewed Sullivan's file and reached an immediate conclusion: indefensible. 9 complaints in 6 years, 3 sustained, a documented pattern of racially biased stops, and now an arrest captured on video from multiple angles, showing a decorated firefighter in full gear being handcuffed during an active rescue. No jury would side with Sullivan. No jury would believe his claims that he was just doing his job. The city settled 14 months after the arrest, paying Captain Marcus Chen $33.7 million, the largest wrongful arrest settlement in Oregon history. The breakdown was telling: $15 million for violation of civil rights, $10 million for endangerment of public safety, $5 million for emotional distress, $3.7 million in punitive damages. Officer Derek Sullivan was terminated 8 weeks after the incident. The termination letter was final and devastating. Officer Sullivan arrested a firefighter captain during an active rescue operation, refused to verify clearly visible credentials, endangered public safety, and demonstrated a continuation of racially biased policing despite multiple complaints and training interventions. His employment is terminated effective immediately. Sullivan's name was entered into the National Decertification Index. His law enforcement career ended at 29 years old. He filed an appeal claiming wrongful termination. The appeal was denied. The arbitrator's decision included language that would follow Sullivan for the rest of his life. Officer Sullivan's actions demonstrated such a fundamental failure of judgment and such disregard for public safety that his termination was not only justified, but necessary. Do you think wrongful arrest settlements should come from police pension funds instead of taxpayer money? Comment below. Captain Marcus Chen testified at City Council hearings 3 months after his arrest. His testimony was measured, professional, and devastating. He wore his dress uniform, dark blue jacket with captain's insignia, ribbons representing 19 years of service, his badge polished and centered on his chest. I'm Captain Marcus Chen. I've been with Portland Fire and Rescue for 19 years. I've responded to over 5,000 calls. I've pulled people from burning buildings, from car accidents, from medical emergencies. I've saved lives. That's my job. That's what I was doing on Belmont Street when Officer Sullivan arrested me. He paused, letting the weight of that sentence settle. I was in full turnout gear. My badge was visible on my chest. Portland Fire and Rescue, Captain, badge 4729. My crew was 20 feet away in identical gear. Our engine was parked on the street with Station 47 painted on the side. My radio was actively transmitting on our department frequency. I had just carried 2 children out of a burning house. Another pause. And Officer Sullivan looked at all of that and decided I was a criminal impersonating a firefighter. Chen's voice remained calm, but the council chamber was silent. I want to be very clear about what happened that day. Officer Sullivan didn't arrest me because my badge looked fake. It's Regulation Portland Fire and Rescue issue. He didn't arrest me because my gear looked wrong. It's identical to what every firefighter in this city wears. He didn't arrest me because I was interfering with emergency operations. I was conducting emergency operations. Officer Sullivan arrested me because I'm black. Because when he saw a black man in firefighter gear, his first thought wasn't, "That's a firefighter doing his job." His first thought was, "That's a criminal with a fake badge." And that assumption was so powerful, so complete, that nothing I said, nothing I showed him, nothing my crew told him could change his mind. Chen looked directly at the council members. I've worked for this city for 19 years. I've earned 3 commendations for valor. I have a master's degree in public administration. I command a fire station. I teach at the training academy. And none of that mattered because Officer Sullivan couldn't imagine that a black man could be a fire captain. He shifted slightly, his expression hardening. But here's what bothers me most. I was arrested during an active rescue. That house wasn't clear yet. My crew had to stop their work to deal with my arrest. What if someone else had been inside? What if those extra minutes Officer Sullivan wasted handcuffing me had cost someone their life? That's not just racial profiling. That's endangerment of public safety. The council chamber remained silent. I'm one person. I have resources. I have union representation. I have attorneys. I have a voice. But this happens every day to black people who don't have those things, to people who get arrested for existing in spaces where officers decide they don't belong, to people whose arrests don't make the news, to people who don't have the resources to fight back. Chen's final words were quiet but clear. If this can happen to me, wearing this uniform, carrying this badge, doing this job, what happens to everyone else? This wasn't just a wrongful arrest. This was proof that for some people, no uniform is official enough. No badge is legitimate enough. No credentials are believable enough when racial bias has made its decision. Marcus Chen was wearing 60 pounds of authentic firefighter gear. His badge was regulation issue. His crew was standing right there. His fire truck was parked on the street. And none of it mattered because Officer Derek Sullivan saw a black man and decided that black man couldn't possibly be who he claimed to be. The badge had to be fake. The gear had to be stolen. The calm professionalism had to be an act. Sullivan's assumptions were so complete, so impenetrable. They overrode physical evidence, witness testimony, and common sense. That's not a mistake. That's not a misunderstanding. That's systemic racism operating in real time, endangering lives, because bias doesn't stop for credentials. This is how racism manifests in emergency situations. It's not always violent or dramatic. Sometimes, it's an officer who sees a black firefighter and assumes criminality. Sometimes it's a split-second decision that delays a rescue, that interrupts life-saving work, that sends a message to every Black emergency worker that their uniform might not protect them from suspicion. Sullivan's career is over. That's justice. The city paid $33.7 million. That's accountability. But money doesn't restore the dignity of being handcuffed in front of your crew. Money doesn't undo the trauma of being arrested while trying to save lives. And money definitely doesn't change the fact that Sullivan's assumptions almost cost the Ramirez family precious seconds that could have meant the difference between life and death. 9 complaints in 6 years. 9 separate incidents where civilians accused Sullivan of using excessive force or making racially biased stops. 3 sustained complaints. Multiple training interventions. Annual evaluations noting problems with bias. And he remained on patrol until he arrested a firefighter captain during an active rescue. 9 complaints. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. A pattern Portland ignored until it targeted someone with resources to fight back. The real question is, what changes now? Does Portland finally remove officers after 3 complaints instead of 9? Do departments finally take bias training seriously instead of treating it as a box to check? Do we finally acknowledge that wearing a badge, a uniform, even a captain's insignia means nothing when officers view Black people as suspects first and professionals second? Because if we don't fix the system that kept Derek Sullivan on patrol for 6 years, despite 9 complaints, if we don't address the culture that taught him to see Black firefighters as criminals, then we're just waiting for the next officer, the next victim, the next rescue interrupted by racist assumptions. Should racial profiling complaints trigger automatic removal from patrol duty? Drop your answer below. Comment if you believe this should be law. Officers who arrest emergency personnel during active operations face automatic termination and criminal charges for endangerment of public safety. And if you think these stories need to be told, if you believe accountability starts with awareness and change starts with pressure, then hit that subscribe button. We're not stopping. We're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding better. We're going to keep fighting for the firefighters, the EMTs, the professionals who deserve to do their jobs without being criminalized for the color of their skin. This isn't just about one officer or one captain. It's about all of us, and the world we're willing to accept. A world where a decorated fire captain can save 2 children and get arrested for it. Or a world where credentials matter, service matters, and doing your job doesn't make you a suspect.